right, Leif Soreide here for Edges and Insights, a little segment we're doing with a lot of champion team trading members. Uh, we've got Leoš Mikulka here from the Czech Republic. I met him on champion team trading. He's a fantastic trader. Almost had the world record last year, which was incredible, right? In the contest, we're gonna see how he's doing this year. We're gonna look for his little edges and insights, see if we can dial in our trading, and go from there. And anyway, welcome to the show, Leoš. How you doing?
Thanks for having me, Leif. Doing
Yeah,
great.
yeah. It's energizing to have you on here. We got together in Fort Lauderdale not too long ago,
Okay.
and it was really exciting. We had a great night out with the wives and sort of like a jersey swap at the end of the night. It went up at Elbow Room, which I don't know if I recommend for everyone. It's a little bit of a dive, but we went to nicer places before. But yeah, and then we had the little jersey swap at the end of the night. I think you might even be wearing it. I got to see
Yeah,
it.
exactly. I got it here, elbow room.
Jersey swap. We kept our clothes on, but it's a metaphorical jersey swap. You know what I mean? So anyway, welcome. Tell us a little bit about how you're doing this year, uh, and your influences and background. Maybe I'm asking too much. Let's just go with your background to start, real quick. Yeah, so they can just
Yeah, so let's just quickly summarize it. I mean, personally now I'm going into 10th year of trading, so it's been already some time. And traditionally I started with like many traders with a traditional CANSLIM investing, Billiam, Bill O'Neill, how to make money in stocks, and signed up for IBD and was following that methodology for quite some time. And over time, as you get inspired and you also join other services and try to get different know-hows from other experts, like for like you, Leif, also join your platform, try kind of let's say fine-tuning my style a little bit instead of just looking for this, let's say, traditional cup with handles and double bottoms and so on, but also broaden the expertise and a little bit think more than just about the technical action and
yeah.
they try to get everything right.
Thinking beyond the pattern. This is a sort of my catchphrase that was talked with some other traders, and they said that's sort of what you were saying also, and that's what we're going to try to get into, so we can dial in those little edges to sort of make sure everybody's improving their odds. It's always a random wheel spin when we get in a trade. We all know this, but we like to improve the odds a little bit. So, who are your trading influences? Just quickly, you mentioned O'Neill.
Yeah, Bill O'Neill, and then later on it was Mark Minervini when I read his books and went through his program.
Yeah, I did as
It was
well. And it's required reading on the platform. Actually, it's sort of. I look at those sort of like continuation of the O'Neill books, and maybe
Yeah,
they'll
I think
find.
that brought quite a lot of insight, especially into the math and stats and all these things, kind of into really the risk management perspective, because it was also one thing that I was completely missing before. That first when you start trading, you just focus kind of on upside, and you didn't really have that knowledge of what to do in a bad times and how to limit not to put yourself into too much of a hole when the things are not going well. So I think this was the key thing. And later on, I joined the CTT, Champion Team Trading, with you, Leif, which was, yeah, it brought also a lot of other aspects, like looking for alternative buy points, trying to get a little bit ahead of the game, and those concepts like you mentioned, thinking beyond the pattern, and really trying to focus on the right thing. It's one of the edges, trying to focus on the themes and the what's actually working at the moment, not just randomly buying any stock that is setting up, but really focus on the key groups and key patterns.
Exactly. Okay, so we want to get as many edges and insights from you as possible. Is there something you want to start with? Some patterns and little, I wouldn't say tricks. I don't like the word tricks. I would say techniques to sort of stack your odds and improve your odds in your trading. And how do you scan too? Let's start with that. So how do you define your universe, and how do you scan them, and how do you
Yeah,
start your day? What are you looking at? And are you working during the day and stuff? That's the other thing.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, I'm still working full time. So, but of course, it's a little bit shifted here with the time zone. So I
Okay.
can work until 3, 4 p.m. and then the trading day starts here. So goes until 10 p.m. and then my day is over. So a little bit time consuming, but
Right, right, right.
And in terms of screening, well, let's say, of course, I currently already have like my build-up watch list that, especially over the weekend, I go over and it may be like several hundred names and I put it into different categories. But let's say if I would start from scratch, if I would have empty watch lists, and what I'm gonna be looking at is my first, let's say, non-negotiable criteria. We'll be looking at by Stan Weinstein's definition and names in the stage two uptrend. And it
Right.
can be, some of them might be like early uptrends where you started moving with a 200-day moving average up maybe for just like one month or so, but you really want to be trading in a direction of the trend. So really looking for the names which are either just breaking into new uptrends or are in the midst. At the end, the best gains you'll get are in the midst of the roaring uptrend.
Yeah,
So
where do you
looking
find
for,
yourself normally? Like solar came off the lows, right, and sort of is making that turn. I got pretty heavy in that. Are you looking more for that kind of stuff, or more of the continuations? Like, where do you typically find your most success?
I
Like,
would say that would be the, let's say, early continuation. Like now we had nowadays we had many bases where it was kind of a second stage base after we came from that correction in April, and they started finally breaking into all-time highs and new highs. So that's, I think, where the most velocity is, because if you're breaking really into that early uptrend, you're still dealing with quite a lot of overhead supply on the left side, and I mean, I'll be very much willing to trade that. It's not that I don't trade that, but I'll be probably much quicker to scale out and take some profits, move my stops and things like that. Whereas when we break into all-time highs, then probably I would be thinking to give it a little bit more room and ride it uptrend a little bit higher.
okay, yeah. So maybe you want to pull up the. Are you using Market Surge today, or what are you going
Yeah,
to use
yeah,
for?
I have a market surge here, so
Okay, yeah,
uh,
pull that up, and we'll just shoot it. We'll talk over some charts and see what we got. All right, Leo. So you got Ion Q up here, and I know you traded this. I also traded this one and kind of sold it into strength. But what were you looking for in this setup, and why did you take it? And what was
yeah.
the little edges and insights and reasons behind it all?
So of course it always starts with a technical action, and from that then we look basically what I look for. I won't be screening for a market, then groups, then names, but I'll be looking first from the names which are setting up, which will lead me eventually to groups, which then might reflect the general market, right? So at this point there was quite a lot of these quantum names setting up, which were kind of forming in a, if you look at weekly, pretty nice technical basis. You had a IONQ, you had RGTI, which all look like this nice prolonged cup with handles. You had the other
Right.
ones, QBT, basically. So there was a potential for the some
Mhm.
really move that would be pushed higher by the whole group. Uh, and once I see that, then I'll start looking for any actionable buy points
Right.
where the IONQ, I liked quite a lot of things that we had this last shakeout here. As you can see here, this 37.25, it finally shook out the 200-day and it started really tightening up along that major resistance area. So once you are here and into these levels, and once you're into this in this position, you will know very quickly if you're right or wrong, right? So it doesn't mean that if I take a trade, it's gonna go in my favor. But once it breaks through this clear resistance area, then I probably know that what the direction from that move might be later on.
Yeah,
So,
the volume there. You might want to make some
exactly.
notes on the volume and
So
really it's
that
kind of a,
volume is
yeah. Go ahead.
started drying up, it's really calmed down. And you see this big breakout. It was like the largest volume, and basically in that whole base, since this
Right.
pop up here. So that's, well, probably somebody's getting really interested in that name. So, and as
Yeah,
you can see,
what's funny. All the guys that are short this, it's just like I want to say like tell me you don't use technical analysis without telling me. And if you're short one of the quantum names on the way up, that's that's pretty much a death wish, right? Until it turns or something. But these guys are there's some guys shorting all the way up, and that's going to be a house of pain right there. So
absolutely. I mean,
keep it.
a lot of people might ask about fundamentals and so on. If you see here these margins and earnings and so on, Uh, then you also have to think about it that usually sometimes if the name has a fundamentals, it's probably going to be the reason for me to hold it for much longer. But a lot of these new speculative names and so on will very often be lacking the fundamentals. Yeah, they very like for example these quantum computers relying really on the future prospects and R&D without
Mhm.
really having any viable products. So that's really on market trying to predict what's going to happen in the future, right? So uh, also comes down also with this AI narrative and all these things around. So and as you can see, I think what's very important is not just that you have one single breakout. Actually, I think the breakout day might have been this lower volume here,
Mhm.
which is still much higher than the volume dry up. But then you get tons of follow through buying volume, which really pushes the price much higher.
Yeah, it came in much later, right? A lot of people will say, "Oh, I didn't buy it because I didn't see the volume," right? And then that that
And
does that's not necessarily an edge. If it's going to turn, it's the first one in the quantum group. You'd probably buy that one, right? If
yeah,
that's what you're
yeah,
looking at.
exactly. Uh, Personally, I mean, as we are talking about trading in new highs, so personally already, because it's also kind of a style that I trade, I took some off already into that top here because logically I was thinking, okay, there might be a new handle setting up because very often that's what happens with these names that it pauses for a couple of days and sets up the pivot right along the new highs. So unfortunately, I took a little bit off already here, but still pretty powerful move.
Right. Yeah. When do you scale typically, and when do you kind of hold back your scale, and how do you determine that?
It's personally I look at three things. So one would be that uh, I want to improve my average stats. So once I'm getting into over my longer term average gain, then I'll be thinking about peeling some off. The second thing is what a lot of people, of course, do is very known the risk multiples. So, of course, if my initial stop is let's say 5%, so I would be looking to the risk somewhere between 1.5 to 2.5 R, meaning from 5% to somewhere to 7.5 to 15%. And then a third thing is that little bit this discretionary thing when looking at the technicals in a base and kind of taking off or at least moving my stops when I see certain technical areas where we could potentially have a new pivot forming. Like it was the case in this base when I was expecting, okay, we had this lower pivot or terminology you can call it, this low cheat entry, whatever, and you would be logically expecting a new handle into the new highs. So I'll be probably scaling there a little bit, waiting for the handle to form. And if that handle actually formed, then I would be much willing to add back to the position because it will be clear breakout again and it will be basically picture perfect prolonged cup with handler, right?
But you're also kind of in a good position, and you sell some where you think you need the handle, and it keeps going because then you have a profitable trade, and you still have some on, so you're not out of the trade. You're sort of hedging a little bit with that by itself. That's
Yeah, I
would you
mean,
say
once
that's
you're in
about
a
what you're doing?
profit, you have a lot of leverage what to do. You can
Right,
really
right.
decide. I
Stop.
mean, depending on your style, if you want to just move the stops, or if you want to sell portion and move stop a little less, or if you want to sell a little bit bigger portion and keep your original stop, but the options open up once you're in a profit.
So, are you still in this one or no?
No, I scaled a little bit off, and then took I took the final piece here into this when it started breaking this
Yeah.
kind of these lows, and then I was pulling my head off, not getting back on because it's exactly the same thing that what we were talking about, the group move and the similar patterns. And you had again lined up all three or four names which are the leaders in this group, like IONQ, RGTI, QBT. If you look at it, you had these almost picture perfect pullback buys which were setting up, and again it was setting up through the whole group. So as you can see, exactly the same pattern, same group, one a little bit weaker, but then I was already then pulling my hair for not getting back on into this very logical pullback buy. But
It's a lot like the solar names. They really all kind of set up, and even the ones that were downgraded kind of snap back. So it's just how do you look at groups, versus lone wolf? I mean, this is sort of thinking beyond the pattern. I mean, are you one to sort of avoid the lone wolf trades, like the one in the group? You're definitely looking at the whole group in the picture. Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
And it's not necessarily that they must be really like performing, but setting up,
Setting
at
up. Yeah.
least setting up. And sometimes you might see maybe like a delayed action that you see, okay, this one leading name really breaks out, starts performing, leading. That's why you call it leader, right?
Right.
And soon after, maybe a few days, few weeks after, you'll get the other names in the group moving the whole thing.
Okay. Cool. You have some other examples you want to do?
Yeah. I have here the two examples which are also basically would let me from one to the another is Tesla, and then I have here Pony, which if you look at Tesla, it was so I traded here the breakout in IONQ, which was I have it here written. It was 9 September, and if you look at the what we were showing before the technical action, you had basically almost the same technical pattern, very similar setting up in Tesla trade. As you can see also finally here, you paused here into that main resistance area and formed this very shallow kind of a handle. So again, you will know very quickly if it goes one direction or the other, if you're right or wrong.
Hmm.
And exactly the same thing as IONQ, it just followed just one day after, it started breaking out and going into new highs or the recent highs over this period. And once I see a name like that, then like we were saying, then you start looking what's working in a group, which eventually led me to Pony, which if you think about that narrative, now we're talking IONQ, which is of course quantum computing, AI, then you talk Tesla, robotics, again talking AI, automotive driving, then it led me to Pony, which is again pure autonomous driving company in China. And what a surprise! I looked at it and just delayed few days. Tesla was 10 September, and soon after this was setting up in a pipeline. And what followed was exactly the same thing that happened in Tesla. Very similar pattern, same almost picture perfect, same pivot, and started breaking out in exactly the same fashion.
It's one of those kind of wild bases you find the tight area on, right? And match up with the theme. It's
Exactly.
a big theme this year. We've got a lot of wild bases, whether it's USAR or TEM or all that kind of stuff. So, but those are the ones that can really get you those risk multiples. I think that's why we're looking at them, right? I mean, when you see something like these kind of newer issues, right?
Absolutely, yeah. As again, if you look at the names, so only the Tesla was probably the one where you can argue that fundamentally that you have some reasonable numbers, but a lot of these newer names will very often lack, as we said, will lack fundamentals. So if you look at Pony, those numbers are really just not there. So you also have to keep it in a perspective and kind of know what you're trading.
And speaking of China, while we're talking, we're having a lot of some China news. So a lot of the stocks are getting kicking out. Like if you're like Tesla, I'm out of Tesla and some other names now. So
Yeah, yeah, it's getting a little bit heavy today. So
China's hostile over rare earth metals right now while we're doing this. So it's a little bit of a sell-off. So these throwbacks, we're stretching. So how fast do you roll up your stops? Like when you get really heavy, like I got pretty heavy. So like I'm out of GEV, probably back to even now and all this other stuff. So when do you switch to even stops? Like how far out do you want it to get in the money, or is it a technical spot?
it's again the combinations, and it depends on also the overall conditions and it's also personal preference, like how much heat are you able to withstand, how much profits do you have for a year, and how much are you willing to give back. So I think it's very important to have this calculated, this kind of the total heat exposure. If let's say if some black swan happens, that uh, if you get stopped out of everything, how much are you willing to sacrifice? And I think what was this year was, I think, strong reminder in January when we had a deep seek. Then, if you have your worst case scenario calculated, then you probably should add few extra percent if something really bad happens, that it can get a little bit even worse.
Yeah, yeah. And at some point, we extend far enough, like we did. I just couldn't bring myself to put on any more trades or anything today. And then we get the almost the black swan. Maybe we get a little shakeout. So some stuff,
Exactly.
shakeouts. I mean, I look at shakeouts and choppy stuff. Everyone says, "Those too choppy," but that sort of sets up basis. I mean, you almost
Yeah,
want that if you're
yeah,
short. If everything's short and extended, you kind of need it to kind of shake and drag out and go sideways, so you can get some new buy points. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, then Hive, of course, not everything is smooth and perfect, right? Even if you try to think beyond the pattern, sometimes it might not pay off. Like one example, one which stopped me out for a pretty decent loss was the COMP, which related to real estate and buying. And if you look at this name again, if you think about the group and technical patterns, you had there a couple of names lined up which were performing very well, which was it was open OPN. It was basically going into this high tide flag setting up. There was couple other the home builders started setting up pretty well. Zillow was setting up also in this area. So that brought me to COMP, which also looked fundamentally pretty okay, and was it was looking like it's going into this probably this early stage two uptrend, and set up again this nice kind of contracting. If you see here, actually, it's even starts tightening. It tightens here once, but tightens even more. Basically, we can consider it as a four inside days.
yeah,
So
that's pretty
very, very nice breakout, but unfortunately, then there was here an announcement, some uh, they acquired the house, which of course rocketed on that acquisition like 50%. Unfortunately, that brought the COMP gap down, and I was stopped out right here.
So a little bit of thinking beyond the pattern. I had open. I don't know if you want to go back to that, but you're showing me the other stuff, and it was shaking it off for a little bit. So we sold a little bit into strength just because we're recognizing, okay, this is it's a good pattern, but thinking beyond the pattern, I'm seeing Zillow and all these other ones drop dead, right? So I'm moving the stop to even after that quick pop there, selling a little bit and taking advantage of that, and
Yeah,
yeah, not looking to get back in until it sets up again. It needs a new base in my view, and the group was terrible. So this was the lone wolf. So that's when I see lone wolf, and that's when I move the stop up. Probably, I think this was one of the best examples of quickly selling some into strength at risk multiples and saying, okay, this group is not acting right. So we got to probably risk manage and move the stop to even, so we don't take a hit on the rest, so we can try to keep it profitable. So
exactly. Yeah. And more speculative you go, I think the quicker you should be. If like we show those quantum names, of course it showed a very promising rally, but I think there's much higher odds that you're gonna get shaken out much quicker. If there's really some dramatic sell-off, then those will go much faster. Instead of if you buying Apple or Microsoft, where you have a tens of thousands of funds, they're not able to offload the position in few minutes like some retail traders.
right. Okay, so what was maybe your best trade of the year so far? Anything come to mind that you want to show?
Best trade was for sure it was CoreWeave, uh, which was here it was, I would say, if you can consider the expert buy, or it was very quick buying where I have this. Uh, what I quite like is I call it inside and go, that you can see at some breakouts, which basically means that if I'm looking at some pivot setting up or some price action setting up, then I want to see it open inside, ideally in the upper half of the previous day, and immediately go. I don't want to see any wiggles go down and start breaking out further, or maybe even some shakeouts. I really want it to open and go from that. And this
That's
was
exactly at the IPO base high at that point. If you draw a
yeah.
line, is that where you're playing that?
So when I was playing it, so there was earnings,
Mhm.
and surprisingly for me, there was no gap on earnings. So basically, my thinking was, okay, if they announce earnings now and there's no gap, it's gonna open and it's gonna go very fast in one direction.
Right.
So if it opens bad and it goes quickly down, then of course I'm not gonna be taking a trade because it goes nowhere. I'm not gonna be waiting for any shakeouts or anything. I'm just not gonna be touching it. But if it goes up, I'm buying because probably it's gonna move probably very quickly. So I went quite heavy on exactly this breakout when it opened, and just a few minutes after open, as it was crossing, I just bought it here,
Right.
and we all know how the curve continued. Again
So
here because I trade a little bit quicker than I was maybe too quick of taking some profits and closing it out. So I think I closed the remainder of the position just into this first rally somewhere here. I was not even waiting for another shakeout, but
yeah,
still very decent trade, and I think this was the most gains for this year that I captured.
it's almost like the earnings pivot that I do, but you did it sort of straight across from the IPO high of, I would guess that would be like 55 somewhere,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
60
somewhere here.
something. I don't know where you're up there.
It's yeah, it was about 65. Yeah.
65, right? So right across there. So what we do at CTT is we don't chase the gaps, but yeah, on earnings, if it opens inside and like pops out at a buy point, like that's a great trade for us a lot of times, because that's the real catalyst. That's thinking beyond the pattern. That's a reason to move the stock. It's earnings. It was maybe waiting for earnings. A lot of patterns, we find are set up because they're just dragging into earnings, and that's the tight area you're playing, right?
And they can be very powerful, and
Right.
very often, if you get a move on earnings like that, then you probably know that there's gonna be also some follow-up buying. That's
Hmm.
not that common that it would just break out like that, and then suddenly next day you would have a complete reversal. Unless you have again, if you have some very speculative names, yeah, it might happen, but very
Yeah,
often there's some 1, 2, 3 days when people realize, okay, there's some power, and they try to chase the name and they push it higher.
yeah. I mean, it's funny. Everybody wonders, is it going to go higher or lower? Sometimes you can do everything, right? You go higher or lower, and then still go back higher, right? So it's the randomness of the earnings pivot can knock you out quickly too. That's the other thing. So we've seen a
Okay.
little bit of that, but we haven't had any really great earnings pivot setups recently. But that's a good example. What about something that maybe your loss or worst trade was the comp COMP? Was that right?
CMP,
That's a
that
good
was very
example of like
heavy. Uh,
whack.
the worst series of trades was honestly Rocket Lab,
Yeah,
where I touched it so many times here.
right.
When I finally sold the last thing, I tried even like this breakout here,
Yeah,
finally
yeah, yeah.
stopped me here again, and then I think I touched it like 4 times or 5 times, and I was like, okay, I'm not touching it anymore. But somehow in my mind, I knew, okay, this time when I'm not gonna touch it, it's gonna go without me. And sure
Right.
enough,
They wear you out. I mean, I did the same. A lot of the. I mean, usually do 3 tries, but some of this was selling into strength, and then I could adjust. But I had losses in that. But I've traded it well in the past. I don't know. I just felt like, and I sold some today into strength before this China news, which actually seems pretty obvious. Sometimes you look at the news and we try to think beyond the pattern, thinking of the news, right? Like the rare earth stuff was known the other day. Was that known on Tuesday? And I was, or yeah, so we knew about that. There was no reaction. Then the next day is a reaction as they finally get around to the news, maybe. And this sort of was our thesis. And today is even more aggressive with China, the rhetoric about the rare earths now, right? So
yeah,
um, anyway, so we have
yeah, I mean,
MP
yeah,
and these other ones. So this is what I'm saying is the sell off today. We were talking before. We're not too excitable about the sell off, right? We don't think it's too serious because I think it's a lot of known stuff. Like we knew about this rare earth metal spat the other day, but it's like the algos are picking it up today and going a little bit crazy with it. But this is already known. So and I have MP too, so I have to kind of want to disclose all what you got there.
I sold mine.
Yeah, that can work, and I tried it off the 50. So you use the 50-day touches too, like I do. I mean, this
Yeah,
is the
so
first 50-day touch, and second,
yeah,
yeah,
exactly. So I started basically going here into that,
right. That was my
and it's again like talking about moving it to break even and so on. So
hmm
my thinking was, so I reduced most of it into the extension here, and
sure,
I was exactly thinking it's gonna exactly now we're in that area. Similar like when I was talking about IONQ, having in the area, it might form logically new handle, which when you have a handle by definition, it should be 4 or 5 days. unfortunately for myself, it's going quite quicker. So I just cut it very quickly. I was very aggressive with cutting it. Just cut it here, and with the thinking, okay, I'm gonna let the handle set up, and I'll be thinking about getting back on. But unfortunately, today looks very strong, and I was thinking actually about trying to take a little bit today. Didn't touch it, but it can still set up. So even if somebody wants to buy it, still at the new highs, if it sets up somewhere in this area, could
So you would
still
buy
buy.
the highs too. Where do you usually find yourself on the pullbacks or on the new highs and new highs only if it's tight, or what would you say? Just to
It's
sort of explain to new traders like where you're where you have the advantage.
it's it's a combination. This year, I would say a lot of my trades are pullback buys. Uh, but overall, I don't really have a preference. I just don't prefer to buy if you really these very typical handles when you're like at a very new highs of a base and you just form a handle here, yeah, it can still work. But ideally, where I would like to be getting on is already somewhere in the middle of the base. So if you get
Hmm.
some kind of a pivot in along some, because very often in a base also it usually sets up somewhere lower because you have these kind of wicks or this overhead which is not very massive. If you then analyze the volume action and you will see the volume profile, you would see that most of the price action is very often happening somewhere a little bit below. Uh, so
Right. Do
really,
you look at that too and say, hey, those bag holders are probably out. They must have sold right away. Like you kind of gained a little bit of the overhead supply also, and think about what's
yeah,
going on.
yeah, exactly. We'll be looking where where the most price volume is concentrated and looking at a price when there's really no overhead supply going forward, when it can really go explosive. Like exactly what we are getting here, right? If you look at
Yeah.
these names, you have, okay, one day a little bit sell off here, it was here. So if you're getting now into this area, if we would set up a new handle, I honestly think we will follow through, that it's not gonna just pause here. But if we would pause here, then into the left, you have basically no sellers there. So if it ordinarily pauses, then I think it could be a very powerful breakout from it.
Yeah, so I tried it twice. I tried it around that 6140, the low of that cup off the 50s, scooping there, selling some, stopping, and then rebuying it. And the first and second touch is sort of, I think, are higher odds. The second touch is lower odds, but nobody wanted to buy it there. So it's like maybe it's just, and I think I tweeted this too. I said maybe this just trades off the 50-day. Like don't overthink it, and then bang, like that was a and then you get lucky with news too, right? It's not like you know for sure, but you can risk manage that, right? I mean, what's the stop going to be? $2 or something? I mean, that's pretty good if you're scooping that where you got it. So what was your approximate entry and about your stop there on the right side?
Uh, the entry was, if I remember correctly, it was somewhere here around as it was crossing the 50-day. So somewhere probably like 68,
Yeah,
69. And I just put a stop below the lows here. So
yeah,
around the 64 there.
yeah. I mean, even the market surge, which is what we're using here, is it draws the cup and handle pattern even there, right? So it's like even we're trying to fish the low in a handle. That's sort of one of my favorite things to do, and I'd say you did it there, right? That's you use that setup too. It's kind of an edge.
Yeah, and I think little nuance also with these pullback buys. It's personally I prefer if it's a pullback into some prior logical technical area. Instead of, yeah, like we saw IONQ, you can also argue as a pullback because it's pulling somewhere like to a moving average. But if you have the pullback in here in MP, so basically you have this high tide flag here
Hmm.
and it pulls back regularly to top of the base. So what was
Yeah,
here a prior resistance is potentially now turning into basically flip the resistance into a support level, right? You have
yeah.
this was the
So
resistance until
that's a
here.
really cool thing because the handle pulled back on top of that support area, like you're highlighting there. And there's the ants on the chart. David
Yeah,
Ryan's sort of credit him with the ants, I suppose. And I sort of look when I see that on the market search charts, I'm looking for some kind of action on the right side. I mean, you look at the same, you kind of use that.
yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a good nuance to look at those ants because, of course, it's a huge sign of strength. but it's also a sign that there might be pullback coming pretty soon.
Right.
It doesn't mean it can go higher, like exactly as we can see in the MP had the power continued. But then once I see the ends, I'll start questioning how much upside there is.
I mean, that's about a high tide flag there. You're going 30 to 60 and then it tightened up and moved. So a lot of high tide flags will have the ants on it. If it's got high tide flag, power and measurements and ants, I'll still trade that. I don't think I took that trade because it was close to earnings and I'm not really sure why, but that looked pretty good, right? I mean, would you have traded that spot too?
I think so, yeah. I don't. I'm not
Even if
100% sure. I'm not 100% sure
yeah,
if it,
yeah,
it depends on my risk and if I will be able to get any reasonable entry. Because on the other hand, I'll be a bit skeptical because I have here these things, and now I'll be thinking where to get on. I would probably, if I would be really laser focused, then I would want to get as low as possible, a little bit front run the breakout to new highs, because probably that risk, if I would be trying to buy it at the highs, it will be probably a little too much, because then I would have to put some either mathematical stop or decrease my position and put there some 12% stop or things like that.
well, in that spot, the early chasers sort of got sold to, so it's almost like a mini shakeout. But so yeah, I probably should have looked at it more closely in the next two bars. And I was joking with Ta Plot on our call we recently did, and I was saying I'm the greatest hindsight trader in history because I feel like I really don't like hindsight trade. We're sort of going back and like looking at some stuff that we didn't do that we should have done, right? But that's the learning process, right? I mean, we love doing it real time. I mean, that's where we're on champion team and we're putting the ideas and look, everyone's got to do their own trading, but it's like, hey, if you line up enough and say, oh, those ideas are good and those ideas are no good, right? Like you have to have your preferences. Um, so
Yeah,
anyway,
that is also one thing I like created on my own website, and kind of trying to put it as a model book, but I try to put it, let's say, as a real-time model book without hindsight trading. So really putting their trades into that model book on the day that I
yeah,
either sell or buy, because of course it's very easy to take a
yeah,
chart from half year back and say, "Oh, I'm a genius."
exactly. That's the. I wish it was that easy, right? We could just look at where we on and get paid. Doesn't work like that, unfortunately, folks. But so we enjoy the random wheel spin. It's the I've been saying this lately. It's like the hot slot machine, right? It's almost like I'll do some unofficial trades lately that are sort of maybe some people are thinking they're the best trades that I've been doing lately, right? So people want more unofficial because I'm saying, okay, this is too risky. This is some crypto. We trade like Wolf and stuff like that, like this kind of crypto stuff. So that you say, hey, this is unofficial, but hey, I'm gonna do it, right? So it's like this is interesting and moving up moving up the stop and trying to getting shaken out and jumping back in as this stuff is going wild. I don't know about
And,
rare earths if this is going to affect this or not. But
and
this is
it,
very speculative. This was $2 not too long ago, so this is very hard for me to say like this is a good official buy, but it's what it is. That's the hot slot machine. We're pulling unofficial trades, right? That's what I'm saying. And then the members will say they know what the hot slot machine is. They're pulling the unofficial. That means kind of the riskier stuff is working, is what I'm saying. Do you sort of think about that and maybe the riskier stuff, like what we're looking at today? What I would say maybe CPNG we're looking at and some hymns, but you almost want to go with the higher ADR ones. Do you look at the average daily range and you want to go with the more wild
I
ones?
don't look at it too much, to be
Okay.
honest. I probably, like, when I look at a chart, I kind of have a idea, but I don't necessarily screen or have the ADR in front of me and look at it. Uh,
Okay. You just know. I mean, it's the other thing. Leosh would know. So, but there is technical stuff we we can do. So some stuff and stats, and a lot of us will just know over time. But about our own trading and things, even if you're not looking at it. But so what else? Do you have any other examples we can jump into?
well, I had here now one which maybe when we talk about thinking beyond the pattern and group moves and themes, as one
Okay.
trade where uh, for me, it was exactly that what we were saying, lone wolf, and other factors that didn't factor in. And I tried to play this name just basically, it was the only Argentinian name setting up. The Argentinian market actually acting pretty bad, and but I traded purely of a technical and fundamental action without putting the other things in a in a perspective, and it was a clear lesson that even when you have the most perfect technical setup, if you don't have that supportive action behind,
Yeah.
the names with the traffic in the same group, then it's not gonna help the price action. So here was multiple red flags that I probably should have avoided. That you have the Argentina, which basically stuck below the 200-day, basically going into, if you look at the trend, it's
Yeah.
going basically rolling into stage 4.
It was
And
hot for a while, so I understand why you went back to it. Yeah, I haven't even seen Melly on my screen for a while, so it's, yeah, I missed
and
that whole base.
you had a RS which is lagging for some time, so there was really no point of really trying to traffic, and instead of focusing when there are so many hot, so many names in the hot merchandise, then why would
Right.
you be trying to get yourself into laggard?
No, I love that because it's like an error that we all do. We end up in a laggard. We're looking for some technical setup, and that's why we're trying to think beyond the pattern. And say, hey, there's no votes for the Argentina stocks right now. It's like right. That's the way. That's probably why this Argentina's in a downtrend, and then this one's the lone wolf. So we sort of want everybody voting for these stocks and with their money, right? So otherwise, it's not going to it's not going to hold.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's another thing. Like, how do you define like a random stock? Like, this is the biggest problem a lot of traders have. They go by the pattern, and I look at it and I say this a lot now. The pattern in the setup, technical buying. This is the tool. I really feel like we need to get into a leader. Like, how do you define a leader? Uh,
I
and
think,
how, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I think there's multiple things because, of course, at the beginning of the uptrend, it's very difficult to define a leader, right? Now, in a hindsight, now everybody can be talking about Palantir as a leader,
Right.
which, of course, but uh, first thing, of course, if there is some very strong technical action, like when if you were talking about MP, as you were saying, then you have a high tide flag. You have a high tide flag, and if you look at then all that sector, and you look at in the history, probably the MP was leading from the beginning, right? That's why also what I said earlier, I prefer trading in the midst of the uptrend because at that point I probably have a clearly identified leader with some price history and some background of what it's doing. But when we're starting to break from the early uptrend, then there will be a couple of things. Then, of course, I'll be looking at a very strong technical action, or is some contraction, volatility, and things like that, and looking for a clues of buying volume coming up, selling volume really diminishing, and the buying volume coming up. And of course, it would have promising fundamentals. In that case, if it's moving into a new uptrend, then I'll be not looking necessarily for the current fundamentals, whereas here the market search is showing the fundamentals and estimates going forward. Because as we know, the market is predictive mechanism and very often trades on a future prospects instead of going necessarily into history always.
Very good. Do you have any examples of what something you think maybe is a laggard right now, like the final setups in this uptrend that are maybe dragging out, so we can say,
Uh,
um,
I
yeah,
think there was a one laggard which are traded, and it confirmed on the earnings that it's probably laggard. Uh,
yeah, in the group, we had this on CTT on the watch list. I never brought it out as a official position or anything
yeah,
because we had MU, but this looked great, right? I mean, what a great little right side there.
yeah, I think at the
Strong
end
group.
I got off, I think, for break even or maybe tiny gain, which what I was looking at is exactly. But there's also one thing when you look at the laggard, and if you know it that you're looking at the laggard, then you kind of know how to approach the trade. So I kind of knew if I look at MU, yeah, in that the storage STX, greatly extending that this huge run up. That's what is it? That's
Right.
insane. It's from
And you're talking more of a laggard in the group, not versus the market, because the RS line looked fantastic to PNG
exactly.
also. And there's this very small name. I think it was what, like a billion or two market cap. So if the group's going to get wild, I mean, almost buying the small one with small caps breaking out and the theme rocking, I don't think that's a bad trade. I think the growth rate, there's a couple things on the sheet there that don't look right, but I think go to MU and you didn't look, there's some questionable stuff there too, but they're just on the move. I guess that's it's just the theme, right? So the future data storage and all that. So they had to have it. So you're on theme with that, but they don't always work out. That's the earnings random wheel spin. Are you aggressive around earnings, sort of scaling back into it?
Yeah, I mean, of course, if I don't have cushion, if I'll be in the name and going into earnings,
Yeah.
then I would be reducing. Of course, one thing is to look at options and try to estimate what can
Yeah.
be the potential move on the earnings and somehow try to adjust the size to it. Of course, more cushion I have, then I'm willing to sit through the earnings and potentially get lucky and capture on those. But if let's say if I we had earnings here, let's say, and if I try to buy this breakout 2 days before earnings, and I'm coming
Mhm.
here with a 1% gain, then either I'm gonna close it out or I'm gonna reduce it to extremely small size.
Right.
To okay, maybe if I get stopped out on some big gap down, then the damage is not gonna be so
So
dramatic.
you use options slam to sort of see the weekly options volatility? That's just my quick sort of
Yeah,
ballpark move. It's not always right, but you want to see if it's going to be huge or not, and sort of adjust accordingly. That's a little edge there that we do. If you go to options slam and put it in there, you'll see the options volatility and what the implied move would be right before earnings. So you could
yeah,
expect, say it's 10%, then we expect a 10% loss, right? As the base case. It could always be worse. You never know, but uh, the sort of sizing for that. So if you have a 10% cushion, then you're in good shape. If that would be the distance, right? I mean, that's sort of the way I do it. Is it similar for you?
yeah, exactly, exactly the same.
Okay. Okay. Good. So yeah, just trying to explain for the viewers. I mean, you know this stuff. You know it all.
Yeah, of course.
Sorry, man. All right. So anything about CTT could help the other CTT members? Like, what is the thing on the platform that sort of helps you the most? Uh, that you use the
So
most? Yeah. Go ahead.
of course, we touched on the thinking beyond the pattern concept, and I think we discussed it quite deeply. But also one thing that's repeated quite often that you mentioned quite a lot in the post is once we have the signal, if you're looking at a yellow, red, green signal, then it's very important to keep in a perspective that you base that signal also based on your own portfolio, right? Let's say you join the platform and you're just coming from some big drawdown in your account. So even if the market conditions on CTT show green, you should kind of adjust to it and keep it as a red signal. Uh, and over
Right.
time, potentially you might get synced with what CTT is doing, and if you'll be training the same signal, but really not try not to get influenced too much from what others are doing and base it from your own trading.
Yeah. Yeah. So good idea generation. You use the lists and all that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's an amazing tool. Like so many like-minded traders share the same ideas, and over time you will see that we're all looking at the same things. So it's very beneficial to see different points of views and how other traders are approaching because everybody approaches it slightly differently. So it's a very good idea generation and knowing what others are trying to do.
Right. Any critiques of it? Anything that you would change? I'm always open to that. It's
Wow.
interesting to improve. That's a constant improvement we're trying to do. I think we got it right though. So I was sort of a service junkie and then made it based on what I think is the best. The minimal noise, no, not just ongoing chat about politics or something, and then just sort of sticking to setups and themes and such.
Yeah, I don't think I have really any criticism to.
All right, that's cool. Um, all right. Well, where can we find more of your stuff there? You have your I can't say the Klobic Chronicles Klobic.
Yeah, we can. Yeah, it's Kablik dash Chronicles, so
Uh,
we can maybe put in some description and so on. So it's my website where I put
okay.
where I put most of my trades. I
I'll
don't want
spell
people.
it in the notes in the video
Yeah,
notes. Yeah.
I also don't want people to understand it as a really full-time tracker. It should be understood as a, let's say, interactive model book. But of course,
Yeah.
I'll try to put there most of my trades. And then, yeah, of course, you can follow me on Twitter. It's my last name and the first letter of my first name, so Mikulka L. From
Yeah.
time
And
to
then
time, I post there, so people
well, yeah,
can.
because we don't have the S. That's not in English. In English, we don't have the little thing on top of your S. So no one's going to find either of us on Twitter because nobody can spell either one of our names. But that's okay. You know, just leave some notes below if you're watching this. You already found us maybe, so that's cool. Any final thoughts for new traders and starting out that want to be you know, getting the world record the next year like you almost had there?
It's again, really, it's about trying to figure out your own style, and of course, all the gurus and inspirations are good, but eventually, I think it's about trying to find out what works best for you,
Hmm.
and it's really about I think chopping those small gains and small losses, and eventually, those big wins are gonna come, and it doesn't have to be that you're gonna have a huge year, but you know, if you're doing good enough returns for a couple of years and then you're gonna eventually get one breakout year, then it's gonna change the game. So don't feel pressured that you have to be making a huge returns. None of us is every year after year. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I got you. So, Leosh, thanks so much. It's great catching up with you. I wish we could jersey swap, right? I wish we could do the jersey swap right here, with virtual jersey swap. But thanks so much.
Yeah.
Sure, everyone's going
Thank
to
you
learn
for having me.
it's those little tricks. Not really. I always hate saying tricks. Those little tips to dial people into what matters about trading, and it's not just the pattern. It's a little thinking beyond that. That's great. So, thanks so much. We'll end it there, and thanks for watching, everybody.